Now one more thing we got to do to Grandpa truck. If you're a grandpa, what's one thing you don't like to do? It's climb into tall vehicles, right? And Grandpa truck's already pretty low, and it used to have the little bumper bar guys on there, the little step up things, but those are, in my opinion, one of the ugliest things in the planet. So of course, naturally, they were removed immediately. And even though this is really no higher to step into than, you know, I don't know, anything else, despite that, we're going to attempt to drop it about an inch. Now, in all honesty, as we can tell just by looking at it, there's way less of a gap between the tire and the wheel well up front than in the rear. Now obviously this is intentional from the factory. This truck's really set up for towing. It's got pretty high towing capacity, and obviously if you were to put a gooseneck trailer, then you'd have a lot of weight over the center of the bed, right over the axle, and that would compress a little bit. That's basically just giving it a little bit extra room for the back to drop if you were to put a ton of weight in the bed or hook up a heavy trailer, especially a gooseneck. Now I do plan on doing some towing eventually with this, but I don't really plan on, you know, towing a ton. I'm not going to slam it because that's also not the direction that this is going, but I wouldn't mind taking about an inch out of the back, and we'll see. It won't get it level, but it'll make it look a little nicer. I do like the level look of a truck, but obviously we can't go all the way level, or else when we load it up it would look like it's dragging its tail, and that would be bad. So we'll mess with the lift blocks in the rear, the little suspension blocks and the leaf springs, and see if we can't get it to come down about an inch in the rear. We'll measure the gaps and see if there's actually a difference when we're all done. Then again, having stated that, we may make zero progress here with the rear, because if you've ever worked on one of these, or really any truck at all, you'll know that the rear suspension, rear bumper, really actually any large heavy part of the truck, the bumper, the suspension axles, anything like that, the nuts that hold those on, they do not want to come off. That is the last thing they want to do, is detach from the truck. So I'll bust out the Croil and we'll start soaking it down, but it's going to be difficult, so hopefully we can get this done. But I'll go ahead and take some measurements so we can see if there's actually any difference. Alright, so if I put the tape measure right on the edge of the tire and then up to the lip of the wheel well, it's a little under 9.5 where it meets the wheel well. Yeah, so a little under 9.5. Then if we go from the ground to the lip of the wheel well, that is just over 38, just under 38.5. Alright, so 9.5, 38.5 is about where we started. Now that we got all those undone, it's time to jack the body off of the suspension. We'll slip out those factory blocks and clean everything up. I'll get some oil out, oil everything down, clean it up, knock any rust off, and then From there, we'll have to put everything back together, and then we'll see if it looks any better. And there you have it. She's all done. Whew, those things really fought me coming back together, but they always do, so that's not a big surprise. Something that I've found that helps when you're lining it up is using a jack on the front of your diff, just a little one, to help you. It helps you get the angle right on the axle before you try and throw it all together. So I like jacking up the front of the diff a little bit until the base plate is flat for all the springs to sit on. Basically, once you got it down like this, you go to drive it around, go through a few cycles, let it bounce around, heat up a tiny bit and cool down, you know, as everything does when you drive it. Maybe a day or two, and then re-torque them. I think the torque spec on these bolts is 110 foot-pounds. For the U-bolts, that's what I took apart. Let's go ahead and see if it made any difference. So before, this measurement was 8.5 or 9.5. Now it's just about 8.5. Just about 8.5. So it really was an inch. The plates I took out were exactly an inch. I have already thrown them away though. I can't remember what the last measurement was, but I'll put it up on the screen. Now we are at 37.5. I do remember it being 38.5, I think, is what it was. So really did lower the tail about an inch, which is perfect because I didn't want much at all, but I wanted just enough for it to be a tiny bit more level, a tiny bit more lower to the ground in the back. So I like the look of it. So yeah, that's how you do it. I do want to tell anybody that thinks that they want to do this, that this job is a pain in the butt. If your truck has any rust or age to it, it really, nothing cooperates. So just make sure you give yourself a few hours at least to do this, and make sure you have a lot of good tools. And impact is really nice for getting stuff off. A good torque wrench and a good breaker bar, and it really doesn't hurt to replace, or it's actually a good thing to replace the U-bolts. It is a good thing. I didn't have time to do it today. I'm also too cheap, but they weren't in bad shape. I cleaned up the threads and everything, and the nuts and everything turned out pretty good. So it worked out for me. Yeah, just be aware of what you're doing if you want to try it for yourself. And that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.